If this person
Okay.
held these views,
How about this?
would they be NAR? Can I finish?
No. Here's why.
Hi, welcome to Coffee and the Word. My name's Paul. I'm a local church pastor here in South Wales. This is just a quick video. I wanted to give sort of a reaction to the latest 3-hour roundtable American gospel conversation between Michael Brown and Doug and Holly, who have written the book, I think it's Counterfeit Kingdoms, regarding the NAR. Now, as somebody who's not well versed in what the NAR is, I was keen to watch this and just kind of find out a little bit more. I'll be honest with you, this was probably one of the most tedious conversations I've watched in a long time. Very circular. I don't think it landed anywhere. It was very unproductive. And in fact, a lot of it was, yo, can I speak? I want to speak. And at one point, I think Doug turns to Michael Brown. He's like, no, I won't let you speak. And here's why. And it's kind of like, okay, that's not very productive.
Please, sir, with all respect, there was a lengthy section of, I listened carefully to Holly's quotes. You've pushed back. I've been given very little time to respond now.
Well,
can I please?
Hold on, that's not fair because we...
Doug, please. Can I respond?
In a moment, yes.
I would like to respond now, okay?
What I am saying is, if you're talking about proportionality of time spent and opportunity to interact, then I think that what we've done is we've given you an opening to say what your basic position is and your disappointment with us is, and now we're trying to respond to that. We're responding to you, in other words.
But you're not allowing interaction, sir. You're defensive and not allowing interaction. If this person held these views,
how about this?
Would they be NAR? Can I finish?
No. Here's why.
And on one side, you've got a couple of guys saying, we've read their books, we've got their articles, we've got their quotes, here they are. And then on the other side, you've got another guy saying, well, I sat down and had coffee with this guy and this is what he told me. And I asked these questions and these felt like the appropriate questions to ask him. And they're like, no, those questions aren't good enough. And so it really became, I guess, a bit of a mess towards the end of it. So if you're thinking about watching this roundtable discussion, you haven't got around to it yet, I would say spare yourself the trouble and maybe watch something else instead.
Joseph Matera says, present-day apostles exert governmental rule over churches. The quote, that's my words. Present-day apostles exert, his words are governmental rule over churches, which includes rule over pastors of those churches.
What do you say
in the context of his book?
Right. So
it includes
because I live with these guys, meaning they're friends.
Yeah.
I've done many Zoom calls with them. We'll chat on the phone. Right. I know exactly what it means. So if I can be allowed to.
But let me just. Before you say that, let me just say this, Michael. That's not fair to people watching our discussion because those people don't have the luxury, we don't have the luxury of lengthy relationships and interaction, maybe over football and sodas on other points, where you get to hear other language that's used. We're pulling from their official public persona and presentation of themselves.
But I will say this, it didn't really lead to any fruit. And in fact, I'll show just some selective segments of the end of the video where Dr. Brown summarizes where he feels essentially they didn't really define it. They summarize that they feel that Dr. Brown is not qualified to talk about the NAR.
Told NAR is terribly dangerous. It's wreaking havoc on hundreds of millions of believers, and yet after hours of dialogue, we still don't know exactly what NAR is. So it's the dreaded spiritual boogeyman, avoided at all costs. It's the theological cudgel that we wage against and lift up against our enemies. But what exactly is it? It's like doctors warning about a dangerous and contagious disease, but 10 different doctors describe it differently. So let me summarize. Yes, there is a real NAR, spearheaded by Dr. Wagner, with which I've had serious disagreements for years. Then there is the imaginary NAR of the critics, which groups together an unrelated collection of charismatic leaders and movements as if it was one entity, and if this entity shared common strategies and goals, then takes the most extreme elements taught by specific leaders as if these were the beliefs and practices of the whole. That's why, as much as I share Doug and Holly's concerns, I also find their work to be divisive, confusing, and fear-producing.
Holly and I have published evidence-based critiques of Michael Brown's general position. We've demonstrated that in his defense of NAR leaders and his claim that NAR is a myth, he's actually disqualified himself as a legitimate spokesman for the mainstream of the charismatic and Pentecostal movements. The thing is, Michael has a deep and abiding commitment to defending NAR leaders who are anything but typically Pentecostal or charismatic. So we think people within these movements should look elsewhere for leadership.
And I will say there's probably one thing that they listed there that I have issue with, only because I have a bit of insight and understanding on it, was when they pushed back on Dr. Brown saying that John Kilpatrick didn't claim to be an apostle. Now, the caveat to that is Dr. Brown left Brownsville in 1998, right at the end of 98. Sorry, not 98. He left Brownsville in 2000, the end of 2000. And I believe, because I think I was there when John Kilpatrick was proclaimed an apostle in that clip, that those things took place afterwards, where he was proclaimed an apostle, and then kind of some of those things that were shown afterwards. So I don't think Dr. Brown's misrepresenting John Kilpatrick. I just think he wasn't around at the time that those things happened. Also, I think many people would agree that the Brownsville revival had kind of ended at that point. So it was more just the church kind of in a post-revival state. So that's one thing I had kind of immediate issues and feedback on. As somebody that was hoping to gain a bit more insight, here's my kind of takeaways. I don't think there was a clear definition of what NAR was outside of apostles having the ability to decree and declare and rule authoritatively over local churches. That seems to be sort of the cornerstone of the NAR belief, that these kind of apostles exist today and declare themselves to be in operation. And I don't dispute that, because I have seen people make those claims. One such guy is an African preacher called Bishop Tudor Bismarck, who also calls himself the Apostle of Zimbabwe. And he makes these kind of claims in terms of his authority as an apostle. And so given their definition, at least on that part of the NAR, that would seem to be fitting. Now, I don't know if he fits in with the other things like Seven Mountain Mandate, or I guess kind of a hyper-realized eschatology, which is one of the things that seemed to be touched on, didn't really come out. But to me, it seems as if a lot of these things exist on a spectrum in terms of people's views on apostles. So you'll have people say, yeah, apostles exist today. They apostles kind of fulfilling the I guess you could say, writing of scripture ministry of Paul. So the kind of church planting, going into new territories, raising up leaders, and they would say, I'm comfortable with that. And then others might go right across the spectrum to, yeah, there's apostles that can do everything that the original 12 could do outside of writing scripture, but can bring forth new revelation. And these apostles, are now the end time super apostles that will be even greater than the apostles of Jesus. Not a position that I see as biblically tenable or would endorse. In fact, I would reject such a position, but I do believe that there are those out there, but they would seem to be the fringe rather than the mainstream, as somebody that's grown up in the Pentecostal charismatic church. So I felt that the definition of the NAR was fuzzy, and I think one key point that I agreed with Dr. Michael Brown on was maybe let's talk about issues rather than maybe specific people and grouping people up all in one bundle. But at the same time, it's very difficult when you talk about specifics to take people who've like, this is what people have written, this is from their sermons, this is what we've seen them say publicly, and you've got a guy who says, I met with them and I spoke with them and this is what they said, and it's off the record. Now, if it was a recorded conversation, it's a different thing, or an official interview, but when it's off the record, it's hard for people to say, yeah, we believe you. We kind of want to know what the details of those conversations are. And so that made everything incredibly frustrating. So this is my immediate takeaway. What I will say is coming up on the channel, I'm going to be talking a little bit more about this conversation with a guy called Rod Saunders from Jew and Greek. I've met Rod recently and he seems like a great guy. He's a Word of Faith apologist, and if you're wondering what that is, we'll chat a little bit about that when I meet with him. But he's an intelligent guy. He'll come from a perspective that some things him and I will overlap with, some things we'll disagree, but I'm sure it'll be a good and fruitful conversation. So keep an eye on the channel for that, and other videos coming up in the future as well. So make sure you subscribe. Please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate everybody when they do subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. God bless you. Bye now.